the forgotten elf a creepy doll's sinister secret. They say small towns have their secrets, and Glenridge, a sleepy town nestled in the Pacific Northwest, had plenty. But nothing would prepare the locals for the story of the forgotten elf. The incident centers around a woman named Clara Thompson, a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer. Clara had moved back to her childhood home after her mother, Patricia, passed away unexpectedly. Her father had already passed years ago, leaving the modest 2-story house entirely in Clara's name. The plan was simple: clear out the old family belongings, put the house on the market, and head back to Seattle. But what began as a bittersweet trip down memory lane soon became something much darker. It all started one evening when Clara decided to clean out the attic. The small, cramped space was cluttered with decades-old boxes filled with Christmas decorations, family photo albums, and forgotten trinkets. Hidden under an old blanket in the corner, Clara found something that made her stomach churn with a strange mix of nostalgia and unease: a tiny elf doll. Its face was painted in faded, cheerful hues, but its eyes, once innocent, now seemed almost too lifelike. On its tattered green outfit was a sewn-in name tag, Charlie. Clara vaguely remembered the elf from her childhood. It had been part of a family tradition. Her parents would move the doll around the house every December, making it watch her and her sister for mischief. But what made Clara's chest tighten was the memory that this doll had been put away for good when she was just 10. Her sister, Lindsay, had always insisted something was wrong with Charlie. She had begged their parents to get rid of it. Clara herself had forgotten all about the doll. Until now. With a nervous laugh, she took Charlie downstairs. Maybe it would make for a quirky memento, something to show Lindsay over a glass of wine. That night, Clara placed Charlie on a shelf in the living room and went to bed, thinking nothing more of it. The next morning, Clara came downstairs to find Charlie sitting on the coffee table, her brow furrowed. She was sure she had left the doll on the shelf. Maybe she'd knocked it off while walking past. Shaking off the thought, she put it back and went about her day. But over the next few days, the movements became impossible to ignore. Charlie was never where Clara had left him. Sometimes he was perched on the kitchen counter. Other times he appeared in the hallway outside her bedroom. Clara began double-checking the doors and windows, wondering if someone was breaking in just to mess with her. When she brought it up to Lindsay over the phone, her sister fell silent. Clara, Lindsay said finally, "I've always hated that thing. Mom never told you this, but when I was little, I used to hear it moving at night, like little footsteps on the floor." Clara laughed nervously. "Lindsay, it's just an old doll. Probably just childhood imagination." "Yeah? Then why'd Mom and Dad stop using it?" Lindsay shot back. "Ask yourself that." That night, Clara couldn't shake the conversation. She stayed up late, scrolling through old photos on her phone, trying to distract herself. Around 2 a.m., she heard a faint creak outside her bedroom door. Her heart began to pound. It was the kind of sound wood makes when it's bearing weight. For the first time in years, Clara locked her bedroom door. The next day, Clara tried to dismiss her fear as paranoia, but things only got worse. She began waking up to strange noises in the house, the sound of objects being shuffled in the kitchen, faint giggles that seemed to come from nowhere. One night, she awoke to the sensation of something watching her. When she turned on the light, Charlie was sitting on the dresser across the room. Clara froze. She had left him in the living room. She was certain of it. Gathering her courage, she grabbed the doll and stuffed it into a box in the attic, slamming the door shut. Whatever this was, it was over. she wouldn't let herself spiral into childhood fears. But Charlie wasn't done. The following morning, the box was open, and the doll was sitting on the kitchen table. This time, his head was tilted slightly to the side, as if watching her. Clara's hands began to shake. She grabbed her phone and snapped a picture, sending it to Lindsay. "I don't know what's happening," Clara texted. Lindsay responded almost immediately, "Get rid of it. Now." Clara decided to take Lindsay's advice. She drove to the nearby Pinebrook Lake and hurled Charlie into the water. The doll sank instantly, leaving only a faint ripple in its wake. Clara returned home feeling lighter, convinced the nightmare was over. But that night, as she lay in bed, she heard it. A faint thud at the foot of her bed. And then scratching. Terrified, she turned on her bedside lamp. Her breath caught in her throat. Charlie was there, soaking wet, sitting on the floor with his head tilted and a single hand raised, as if waving at her. Clara fled the house that night and never returned. The property was eventually sold, but local legends persist. The new owners claim to hear faint laughter echoing through the halls every December. And sometimes, just sometimes, they wake up to find a small, wet footprint on the floor.